That's right. It's week 3. We've made it. Hello, lovely. My name's Zoe. My brain's a dragon. And today we are having a plan for week 3 because I know that this is going to be one of the hardest weeks for me for Nano. It always is. It kicks my butt regularly and I become an absolute nightmare to live with. So let's see if we can't make that a little easier on me and everybody around me by having a decent plan. Our plan is actually really similar to week 2. What's that? We come up with a plan, test it, and then optimize? I am shocked. I mean, I'm not that shocked. That is the entire point of this exercise, but at the same time, it's working, and that's a very pleasant surprise some days. Next week's plan looks very much like stop the procrastination from eating your progress. Largely because week 3 is going to be getting from the midpoint to the end of Act 2. This is where everything falls in a screaming heap and you start actually emotionally torturing your characters for making the choices that they've made and not being prepared to make better choices because they're not in a position to do that yet because they haven't learnt the things the story was supposed to teach them. Because this is the part where they learn all the hard lessons so that they can then have the happily ever after. I don't like torturing my characters. I know there's this really big thing about writers and how they love to torture their characters and drink tea and have parties or whatever while their characters are suffering. I'm not one of those writers. If my characters aren't happy, then I'm miserable because I write very much from a feeling sort of position. So I spend a lot of time feeling my character's emotions, which makes this whole week 3, second half of Act 2 incredibly uncomfortable. Often I will rush myself through it or I will stop the project at about the midpoint because I don't want to have to deal with this sort of level of discomfort. But we're going to do it because I am going to take it nice and easy and we are just going to get through it this week. I'm actually going to try and implement the Catherine Deveny half quarter comfortables thing that we tried in week 2 and I didn't actually do except for one morning. Turns out that was the correct answer and I know what I'm like. I'm going to sit down at my desk and be like, oh, I'll just do something else. Oh, I'll just tidy up. Oh, I'll just, I don't know, stare at the internet for hours on end because I don't want to do the thing. So we're going to try and do the sprints in the morning and pick a group that I'm in that has the right emotional resonance for wherever I'm feeling at the time and just start sprints in there. I've got a group that is particularly lovely that I spend a lot of time in, but that isn't super focused on sprints, and we've got a little spot where you can just run sprints and you don't have to worry about interrupting anybody. I've got a couple of groups that have a very active sprint community. So if I feel like I need a bit of company so that I will actually do the thing, I can pop a sprint in there. I've also noticed that if I start a sprint, sometimes there are people who've just been kind of lurking and that haven't wanted to start a sprint, and then they suddenly jump in and we have this fantastic sprint environment. So I'm just going to start the sprints. I know that I'll probably be aiming for 6 15-minute sprints or 4 to 5 20 to 25-minute sprints depending on who I've got around. I will do the 15-minute ones for myself because I know that they work very well for me. I'll do the longer ones if somebody else is already running them and I'm leaping in, or if the people that I'm sprinting with happen to prefer those lengths of time. But I will try and do them early in the morning so they're done for the day, and then I can wallow, cry, drink copious amounts of tea as a coping strategy that may or may not actually work. We'll find out. I've also figured out that if I decide that I am actually stuck, which, let's be honest, is probably just another way of me saying I don't want to do this, I have the option of using dice or other random choice generators in order to get myself unstuck. I don't necessarily have to take the choice that the random chance gives me, but I do need to use it as a starting point and make an actual decision. It not only will help me come up with what my options are, it'll help me narrow down what I actually feel is a good idea and what I'm actually avoiding because it's the correct answer, but it's really hard and I don't want to do the hard stuff, which I think is a pretty decent way of getting around Brain Dragon and its tendency to be in a ball under a blanket somewhere cozy instead of doing the hard thing. Also going to be aiming for about 3,000 words a day because I think that the 4 days of writing, 3 days off is actually pretty useful. I don't know what my week is going to look like next week and I'm not feeling great. It's been one of those weeks where I haven't actually been looking after myself properly just because I've been feeling so tired and so done, and that means that there are consequences consequences for next week. I'm hoping to get more self-care stuff like eating correctly, exercise, drinking water that's not just straight tea, like actual water, into my day so that I do feel physically better, which will hopefully mean Brain Dragon has less opinions, but we will see how that goes. I also know that I want to do a few things that aren't writing related so that I have something that is fun, but that I can also use as a reward if I do my words. So I can then go and sew for 20 minutes, half an hour, which may mean that I need to spend some time organizing my sewing projects into what is mostly finished and what is not even started. Maybe don't begin with that one, which is always a nice process, and it's getting into the warmer weather theoretically, so I should be able to find some nice quick summer sews so that I have them done and I feel good about myself, and that will always be helpful to boost my mood going back into writing. I'm also going to make sure that I don't push myself to try and get 5,000 word days, even though Golden Gaytime and Violet Crumble ice creams are particularly fantastic. I don't want to burn myself out, and I know that if I aim for 5,000 word days, that could be a very real possibility. I am going to say yes to sprints, but I am going to be very conscious of where I am emotionally, and if I'm at a point where I can continue the story on, great. If I'm not, that's fine. We can productivity sprint, put stuff in the World Bible, make our scene outlines for our theoretical editing pass, the kind of things that still keep me in the story world, but that don't actually require a huge amount of emotional spoons so that I don't have to worry about it. So that's the plan. We're going to try and get to the 75% mark, which is pretty much the Dark Night of the Soul and just before the Wake Up Catharsis. I may decide when I get to that point that I actually need to write the Wake Up Catharsis so that I feel like the week is done and I don't have to feel awful. Or I might do what I've done this week and leave something that is pleasant to come back to, so I'm looking forward to writing the next section. We will find out, and hopefully we will have the last half of Act 2 done for the beginning of week 4, because then it's just Act 3 and all of the shenanigans therein. I'm really looking forward to it. There should be a whole lot of good stuff in there. So I'm going to go and make myself a cup of tea, plan out next week's adventures, and hopefully the story will continue to unfold. And I will see you next time. Bye, lovely.